I'm not saying never be satisfied for what you have. I'm just saying be cautiously optimistic and always be curious for what you're lacking. Because unless you're fully satisfied with life, the odds are you're missing a balance.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good afternoon, Hayk Tadevosyan. Ooh, I like the way that name rings. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful day?
Great, Angel. Thank you so much for asking. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks for asking as well. Now, what part of the world are you in right now?
I am in Seattle, Washington.
All right. And which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this specific time in history?
One thing I was very much blessed with, maybe, if you want to call it a talent, I learned early on that if you work hard and you've got the right opportunity, things will come your way. And, ever since I was 13 years old, I've been a very hard worker, whether if it's hard work for earning money, hard work for my health, or hard work to maintain my relationships. I think I took all the lessons, what hard work can bring you. And also, I learned a very, very valuable lesson that you can be the hardest working farmer in a desert. You will never grow a plant, right? So I also learned to match hard work with an opportunity. And that's how I was able to build my business. And in the last 9 years since I've started my business, we've been actually the number one producing office in the territory every year since. And a lot of people ask me about our secret, and my secret's always been good old-fashioned hard work. So if there's any talent out there, hard work I think always beats talent.
Well, that's amazing. Wow. That is powerful, Hayk.
Thanks, Angel. It's been a long journey, but also very worth it.
Well, tell me about the book, The Power of Mindset.
So I started writing the book. Essentially, I began to write about my own contentment, right? At one point in my life, I felt like I was the happiest and most successful human being. Even though I wasn't the wealthiest, I wasn't the healthiest, I didn't have the biggest family or most amount of friends, I had stumbled upon, I think, one of the secrets that people always talk about. What's the secret to success? And to me, coming from a very poor country in Armenia where there's no middle class, there's no opportunity, I had a really big hole in my heart. And I assumed that in order for me to be happy and feel content with myself, I had to fill up that hole with money because we've been poor my entire lives, right? So early on, in my early 20s, I started business. Mid to late 20s, I was doing very well. And it was one of the most disappointing experiences of my life when I hit my first six-figure income in my early 20s. It was so disappointing to the point I felt like I was a failure because I'm thinking to myself, this dream that my family's pursued, we moved to Armenia, from Armenia to Russia, back to Armenia, then to US. We left my mother, my brother, my sister back in Armenia. I didn't see him for 7 years. We did all the sacrifice to become financially stable. I finally became financially stable and I realized this is not it. I had this misconception of what I thought success to be. I need to figure out a better way. But, there's always a sacrifice, right? You can't have it all. There's a cost to it. I had sacrificed my health. I had gained a bunch of weight. I was 250 pounds. I neglected my friends. All I had was a good business. At that time, I decided to hire better. I decided to do a little bit of me, right, to figure out time with myself. I signed up for a marathon. I started working out. 6 months later, I dropped like 40 pounds. I finished my first marathon. I got very healthy, very fit. I started looking, in the mirror, being happy with the way physically I looked, but there was still something missing. And during that time, when you work on yourself, you tend to attract, I think, certain kind of people. And I started attracting more positive people, more fit people, more healthy people into my life. And that's how I, started building better relationship with my friends. I started going out more. I started going, lunch breaks with my peers just to have a good time with them. And eventually I met my spouse, got married. And then at that point I looked at myself and I said, you know what? I need to write about this experience because I feel like I'm very successful now, even though I know people who make 10 times the money. I know people who run marathons twice faster than I do, and they have a lot more friends. I came up with a concept called the 4Fs. And to me, the 4Fs was family, fitness, finances, and friendship. So I wrote an entire book. It was 300 pages about me believing success to be between the balance of those four pillars, which is family, fitness, finances, and friendship. I wrote the book, and then I completely disagreed with myself. I almost threw it away. I called a few of my mentors and peers. They've got PhDs, they're doctors. And I said, can I ask you a question? So I've been working on this book silently. I haven't told anybody about it. I had a thesis. I wrote about it and I disagree with it. I do not want to publish it. It sucks. They're like, what do you mean? I said, well, I disagree with my thesis. I said, success comes from balancing out the 4Fs in a specific order. You got to figure out your money so you can buy yourself some time, have the time to train yourself, to get healthy, have the time to spend time with your friends. And when you got that taken care of, you meet your significant other, you have some kids, and now you're successful. But I'm wrong. Like, what do you mean you're wrong? I said, there's no specific order. You actually figure out and you work on the monkey that's on your back. For example, if you've got a monkey on your back telling you you're unhealthy, you're sick, you're overweight, you've got to take care of that F, fitness first. If you're poor your whole life, you got to take care of that first. If you don't have friends, take care of the friendship tank first and work in that order. And there's always going to be misbalance, and you have to balance it out. So my friends, my mentors were like, there's a reason why when you get your dissertation to when you write your thesis, there's a reason why you put it on the paper, because when you do, you disagree with yourself. Often it's very common. So go back and re-edit. So I went back and re-edited for another year and a half, 2 years, finally got the book ready. And my thesis changed to 4 pillars of success: family, fitness, finances, and friendship, in not any specific order. We work on the F that we're lacking the most first, and we prioritize from there. So that being said, I've published the book ever since. And then I've been talking about that message. And I think there's a lot of good lessons. I talk about my American dream story, coming here with nothing, building a business, establishing relationships, working with my community. I'm a deacon for my church, volunteer work for the community as well. So there's a lot of different moving parts, but I needed to write it not for others, but I wrote the book for myself first. And after the book made sense to me, now I wanted to make sure it makes sense to others.
That's amazing. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That is absolutely amazing. Wow.
Thanks, Angel.
Wow. There are not many times I'm wowed this much, but what I'm fascinated by is there's a voice somewhere in between each one of your transitions. Where do you think that voice comes from?
I think experience, Angel. There's a lot of people that can relate, right? We hear a story, we relate. We hear somebody losing some, close people in their life, we can relate. But unless I think you live through certain things in your life, there's a saying by people quote Albert Einstein for a lot of things. So I don't know if this is truly him. It said, dumb people don't learn anything. Smart people learn from their mistakes, and geniuses learn from other people's mistakes, right? But I also believe there's a direct correlation between learning from your own and learning from others. I think you got to get very good at both, but also we don't live long enough to make all the mistakes to learn from ourselves. So you can't just learn from others. This is why I believe risk is a huge factor in our life. And I don't want to call myself a very risky person. I want to say I've become conservative over the years, because now I have a lot more at stake. But experience where it's very emotional, where you even remember what you were wearing that day. You remember specific sounds from that day. Putting yourself in a position of failure, I think, is a huge part of that experience that I'm talking about, Angel. I did put myself in a place where I could have failed in business, but I worked my butt off. I did put myself where I could have failed in asking a woman out. Now she's my wife. I did put myself in a risky place where I wanted to put myself out there with this book, where I could have been criticized, and I do. There's been some people who've been giving me negative messages, but also one thing I do know: if you don't have people criticizing you, you're not doing enough, right? Mm-hmm. So you should be okay with criticism. And our primal instinct tells us, don't take risks. Don't take the leap of faith, because for thousands of years, if we took risks, we would be killed in a forest, whether in a cave, right? So what used to work in our favor, which was this fight or flight mechanism to keep us safe, it's working against us now. That's why you see every great story, every great accomplishment now began with a risk. Well, back in the day, risk almost meant death, right? So, and again, I think the transition between me finding out, okay, I'm, financially things are good. So what's my next step? I wasn't comfortable. I took a leap of faith and I said, I'm going to give myself a pay cut. I'm going to hire better team members, and I'm going to give myself a freedom to be able to work on myself. I worked on myself, and all of a sudden I was able to be vulnerable and open to build better relationships, because I was pulling myself away from my friends. That led to my relationship, and that led to the balance. So I think, now I'm not saying never be satisfied for what you have. I'm just saying be cautiously optimistic and always be curious for what you're lacking, because unless you're fully satisfied with life, the odds are you're missing something, and the odds are you're missing a balance.
Let's switch gears, Hayk. I'd like to know what's your earliest childhood memory.
Actually, I have a very vivid answer for that. We are standing outside. I grew up in a very poor, like a village-like area. I remember I was outside. My mother was bathing us outside because we didn't have enough water pressure to get to our home. So she was using a big cup to take water out of this fountain we had in front of our house, and she was just washing us. I don't know why I remember that. I remember bus driving by and kids pointing and laughing at us, but that's the way we took showers in our day. So
let's analyze it, though. If you had to connect it to who you are today, is there a great big metaphor that's occurring, a parallel to who you are today?
I think there's a huge connection, Angel. I think there's a little bit of a post-traumatic stress disorder, a PTSD, and a little bit of a motivator there as well. And I think both work together. And what I mean by that is I never want to go back to a day where I cannot afford water. I never want to go back to a day where we don't have electricity, right? Even though odds of that happening in US is never going to happen, right? But I always have this fear, what if I lose everything I worked so hard towards, which is what gets me out of bed at 4 a.m, which is what makes me want to, go exercise so I can positively rub off on my team, and my team is motivated. Now I got my team running marathons and doing, long distance runs with me and training and becoming more motivated. So I think there's a correlation, right? Even though it's a fear, but also it's a very big motivator for me as well.
Can I offer what came to my mind when you shared that memory?
Please.
I love the fact that you are doing what your mother did at that point in time. Of course, using what was available, but ensuring that the best you could be presented. So you're getting your team to do everything they're doing now, right? But it's because you yourself have seen the resource for what it is, and now you're sharing it. And within that, there's a beauty of your life. Just like with your mother. Yeah, it was challenging, but she got joy out of ensuring your needs were met. As not nice as it was, yeah? But there's a beauty in that, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And there's a huge lesson in resourcefulness. We work with what we had. That was my reality. To me, that was it, right? But I think, there's a huge connection to mother's love, instinct, taking care of the children. My parents passed on a lot of love. They taught me a lot of courage, and they cared for me. And I think teaching your children love is one of the biggest assets you can give them versus giving them money or solving their problems for them.
I totally agree. If we fast forward to when you were 12 years old, what was your favorite song?
To be honest, Angel, I don't remember having a favorite song at that time.
It happens, yeah. Most of the individuals that I've spoken to who have transitioned at that age, it's as though their antenna for music isn't up because there's so many things going on. All right, well, we've arrived at our destination, Hayk. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form, so it's yes or no, right? We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Hayk, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Yes.
Are you married?
Yes.
Do you have children?
Yes.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No.
How about 3 hours a week?
Yes.
What about screen time, the phone and or the computer? More than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Depending on how much I'm working.
All right. If you had to share with us your own unique, real statement, a statement that represents who you are, Hayk Tadevosyan, what would you say that is?
Faith.
Love it. Hayk, this has been a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I just want to thank you for your time, Angel, for taking this moment and asking me great questions. And I had a great time, Angel. Thank you so much.
Love it. Hayk Tadevosyan. Again, amazing audience. Check him out, haykt.org. Thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.